Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. We're here today to talk about some interesting topics about intelligent automation. From our perspective, we get quite a lot of clients, customers and prospective customers ask us about what intelligent automation is, and some customers who have done something with RPA and they're then looking at what's next and what is intelligent automation and what does that mean for their organization. So I thought it'd be good to get together with Wayne. I'll let him introduce himself in a second, and we can have a conversation about what intelligent automation is and all the technologies surrounding this topic, and hopefully give you an insight to improve your knowledge and hopefully make the unknown a bit more known. So Wayne, if you want to introduce yourself, thanks for joining me.
Pleasure. Thanks very much for having me, Harrison. I've seen some of your other videos and I wanted to get involved. Obviously, as someone who's known you for a while, and obviously I've been in the automation space for a while, so really good to collaborate. And yeah, really pleased to be involved in the conversation.
Thanks. Great. So I think one of the main topics that or one of the main questions that we get asked, at least from a lot of our customers who have been doing quite a lot with RPA, they've built a center of excellence and they've got some automation in place in the business, is what is intelligent automation and why should I care? So I was keen to get your thoughts on what exactly intelligent automation is, and why should businesses actually care once they've done RPA.
It's a question I get asked a lot as well, and I guess the easiest way to describe what I would see as the role of RPA within an organization is that RPA is very good at automating handwork. And you're like, okay, so imagine the types of things that you are doing with your hands when you're in the office, right? You're moving your mouse, you're typing away, copying, pasting, moving data. Like, that is your handwork.
Yeah.
RPA is amazing at handwork, but guess what? For the vast majority of tasks that we do, we don't just blindly use our hands. We're using other senses. We're using other capabilities. And in my view, intelligent automation is what I class as headwork. So imagine then, if it's headwork, what that involves. You've got your eyes, you've got your ears, you've got your brain, you've got your ability to communicate, to listen, to understand, to make decisions.
Yeah.
And so the role of intelligent automation is to combine the handwork, which RPA is so good at, with the headwork, which is where the intelligence kind of comes into. And I think that's probably the best way of describing the role of IA, is to complement the handwork with some more complex tasks that you can complete.
Okay. And so is within intelligent automation, is that often the same product, just a bit more advanced? So there are different organizations that are doing, do they have different intelligent automation products compared to some of the RPA products we see on the market, or are they done by the same people? Because I know going through that transformational phase of implementing these technologies into their organizations, a lot of businesses are bombarded by options, and we know that there are loads of RPA vendors out there now, and there's so many options. Where does an organization go, and who do they look to for that? And can it be done in one place?
I guess my initial view is, can you do everything with one tool? My general go-to answer is no. And the reason I'll say that is jack of all trades, master of none. And some of the stuff that we're expecting these technologies to do is pretty cutting edge, right? It is extremely specialized. And if you want to do 4, 5, 6 different things that are highly specialized, unless you've got a huge R&D budget, unless you're a Microsoft, unless you're an Amazon or a Google, you're just not going to have that R&D to be an expert in all of these individual things. So, in short, is there a single tool to do probably everything that you might expect within an intelligent automation collection of technologies? Probably not. But are there tools that combine a couple of the capabilities? Absolutely. Probably the more interesting segue into this question, I guess, is, well, when you said these capabilities, like, what do you actually mean? And I guess I kind of gave some of it away when I spoke about headwork. So if you imagine, let's break that down. Okay, so your digital worker, copy, paste in, all your hands, that's your RPA. And you've got your BAU of RPA, and as you say, you've got a load of other vendors in that space as well. The next one's probably OCR, or intelligent character recognition, whatever you want, basically the eyes.
Yeah.
And for your structured, unstructured documents, anything from an invoice to an application form to Siri just talking about UiPath. How funny! Hey, I'm the technology king, right?
So, yeah.
Siri, no more. Just trying to steal the limelight from me because I didn't mention Apple before. Apologies. So you've got you've got your OCR, that's anything from an invoice to a passport. Okay. But OCR again is a 20-year-old technology. So is that really classed as intelligent? Probably not. But when you start to think about some of the other machine vision capabilities that are out there, so something like Microsoft's facial recognition API, that can tell you the age, sex, even how somebody is potentially looking or feeling, whether or not this passport or driving license looks authentic, as in, are they wearing a hat, glasses, and a fake beard? Probably not going to work.
Yeah.
If you start to think about the process that you're trying to maybe automate in that space, RPA, gathering data, putting it in front of an OCR to extract information from a passport, using a facial recognition API to check whether the photo looks legitimate and whether the age of the photo matches the likely age of the person within some kind of boundary. Suddenly you've taken a process that you could not automate using RPA. Nada is not possible to automate using RPA. With a couple of technologies that are very complementary, suddenly you've got a KYC, anti-money laundering, fraud task, part of a process that now you are able to automate. So that's your eyes. Next one's probably language. Okay, so again, we know that RPA is a technology very good with structure, needs structured data.
Yeah.
It can't read per se. It can match. Okay, you can maybe use a bit of fuzzy logic to match something that's almost identical, but really it can't read a sentence and interpret it. So you need to start thinking about reading. And if you think about the role that we in an organization have, I know I spend 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours a day in front of my inbox reading, right? So again, it is an absolute necessity to have a technology that can read and interpret like we do as workers, because the vast majority of the work that we do does not come in a structured form or in 3 lines in an Excel. It just doesn't come like that. We've evolved, we work in structured data all of the time. So this ability to read and using NLP in order to do that, extremely useful. I would actually say that NLP is probably the most transformational of the intelligent automation stack. If you get the right NLP technology and you deploy it in the right way on the right process, I think this is the big enabler for a lot of organizations where RPA potentially has got it's got a shelf life. They're not structured enough for RPA to work very well. And I know a couple of clients where NLP has significantly accelerated their ability to use RPA. This is not instead of, this is a complementary technology that feeds structure into a technology that craves it. So those two alone, I think, are not the panacea for everything, but really important. And then I think if you start to think about some of the more complex processes that we complete, again, RPA is really good at following structured rules. But you know what? Everything we do might not be as simple as if, then, or else. And so you need another technology to help RPA make really complex decisions. And you've got the concept of AutoML. You've got tools like Rainbird who do, they almost codify knowledge to help you make decisions. And these are the types of tools where AI Fabric from UiPath is basically being created to enable these really complex decision-making processes, these algorithmic models, to be plugged into RPA directly so that you can make really complex decisions. And again, that complex decision feeds the answer to RPA, and RPA just does the do. It acts on the decision that something really complex in that intelligent automation spectrum has made. And then I think the last thing really is conversational AI. So again, we spend our time conversing. We converse in natural language, sometimes speech, sometimes text. We live by communicating with each other. And sometimes that is a very, unstructured email, and sometimes that's a conversation via the phone, via instant messaging, online chat, etc., etc. So if you think about, you've got your handwork, copy paste, you've got your look, you've got your think, you've got your read and understand, and you've got your converse. Suddenly you've gone from the ability to move around data to a full digital worker. And that digital worker is what I would class as intelligent automation. When you bring all of those technologies together, you've created individual capabilities that mimic a larger proportion of the work that we do in the enterprise.
Great. It's really interesting to hear about the different aspects of it. I think people see it almost as one-dimensional sometimes in intelligent automation or RPA, and they don't see it as a complement of various technologies. So that kind of leads me on to the next question that we get asked, and I think it follows on nicely from that around what is the best next step for once a company has successfully implemented RPA, what technology should they look at next?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the sort of the OCR? Is it the conversational AI piece? How would you sort of go about deciding that?
It's a simple answer is to understand the business and understand the problems that are still remaining in the business. And actually, a lot of companies that have already deployed RPA, they've already got the answer. They're just not interpreting the data in the right way to be able to understand what that answer is. The beauty of RPA is that a process is either relevant for RPA or it's not.
Yeah.
And what you need to do is you need to look at all those processes where you've said, nah, RPA is not going to work for this, and understand why. Okay, what was the reason why RPA couldn't do this process? It's because I need to look at this. Because it comes in via an unstructured email. It's because actually it's kicked off in our IVR via a voice conversation. So you probably already have the answer. You just haven't necessarily looked at it through the right lens. And I think that's where that's usually the next step that you need to take. Now, I guess what you need to have though is actually an understanding of what are the various solutions, because RPA is very black and white, and there are a real set of rules around what RPA can do and what it can't. I would say, someone who kicked off my first RPA program almost a decade ago now, actually, these rules have been well defined. They've been written about. There's books that have got these rules written in. You can't necessarily say the same for the rest of that intelligent automation stack. The books, they're still to be written.
Yeah.
And so it is more complex to give a definitive answer on where do we go next. But I think that the key thing really is to think about what you have not been able to automate using RPA. Figure out what was the reason that you were unable to do that, and that usually gives you a good indication as to which of the next technologies you should be looking at. And then outside of that, the real step would again be to look externally, I would say, and start to think about an assessment, an intelligent automation focused assessment, not an RPA assessment. So if you're just doing what you've done before, you're going to come up with the same answer. So it's about doing something different. It's about looking through it with a different lens, and it's about increasing your internal skill set so that is the new norm. Yeah. If we think about, for most people now, RPA and the process of RPA is becoming BAU in a lot of organizations. Intelligent automation is not about ripping the rule book. It's about adding the second, third, and fourth chapter to that rule book. And I think that's the step that a lot of our organizations are struggling with at the moment, is that they are unable to make that jump from rule book 1 to the second, third, and fourth chapter. But I think there is now a path to get there, and there are organizations that are on that journey. And quite a few of my customers are onto their second, third, and fourth technology in that stack. So absolutely possible, doable. And yeah, I think it's it's going to be really interesting next kind of 3 to 5 years as that end-to-end digital work with all of those capabilities starts coming together.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah, and I think that's something that leads on nicely to another question that we get around where to start. You mentioned about coming in and doing like an intelligent automation assessment, and is that something that that's something that's done and you do? How does that typically work, and do you basically help your customers like build a business case around specific technologies and then help them go back to the business and kick the program off? How does that typically a lot of stuck at that point of just doing RPA and then they don't know where to start? So and obviously it centers around things that they haven't done, but it's it's trying to identify get started.
Yeah, I think you've mainly answered the question there. So and it is that simple, right? It's not necessarily about the answer is not necessarily about doing an assessment. The key to it is having a in-depth understanding or enough of an understanding in order to correctly identify opportunity. Because it's, as I say, it's very simple to go from yes RPA, no RPA, because there are this set of rules. But when you start to think about maybe even the wider intelligent automation ecosystem, I generally talk about 5 technologies. I actually view intelligent automation to be even wider than that. And so, understanding the nuances of something like natural language generation is actually quite different to, say, the nuances of natural language processing. To understand where text analytics and where the role of data science feeds in, and all of these things, and where actually it's right to have a update to your core system versus trying to automate something. So the step really from can you do RPA, yes RPA, no RPA, to really understanding intelligent automation and the various technologies and the role that each of them can play, and then understanding whether A, they should, B, whether if there's a business case there. Because again, once you start thinking about 5, 6, 10 different technology types, you might find a great opportunity for natural language generation. As an example, I'm working with a client at the moment, and one of the things that they do is they take numerical data and they write reports on the successfulness or not of investment funds. And that is an amazing example for where natural language generation technology is absolutely perfect. Its role is to take numerical data and to write a text-based summary of what it understands that numerical data is telling it.
Wow.
It's a great example. However, that technology is like 6 figures. It's expensive. So if you've only got 3 people doing it, unless there is a big backlog of stuff that you're not doing, whether there is there's a need for speed, so that you're not necessarily taking a week to write a report, you want to do it in a few hours. Then it makes it very difficult to kind of sign off and agree that this is it's a great user case, but actually, is it the right thing to do? Probably not, because it's just not going to make a good financial sense when by the time you've paid for implementation and the software, actually it's costing you more money. So there is this real understanding of knowing what the technologies are, knowing the role they can play, knowing the types of processes that they're really strong at automating, but then also understanding the commercial aspects of that. So how long it takes to implement, what specialisms does it need to implement, and what the return, what the software costs are, whether it's recurring, perpetual. So all of that really is a load of information The other thing is, and we spoke about this earlier, is that the RPA ecosystem is, RPA tools. There's a big three, and then there's a load of smaller ones. When you start to look at intelligent automation, yeah, you've got some tools that do a couple of the aspects of the digital worker, but for every tool that does multiple, you've also got individual specialist tools within those sections. And suddenly you go from an ecosystem of three big ones and then some others that you know about to, you take conversational AI, for example. I could probably name 30 vendors off the top of my head that you could have decent conversations with and who have got decent brands working with them. And then you extrapolate that across the multiple different technology types. And suddenly you've gone from, well, it's going to be one of the big three to it's going to be something in this kind of 100 mark. And that is a really difficult place to be. So even if you know the opportunity and where that opportunity is, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have chosen the right tool. The other thing when you get into the real nuance of this as well is NLP is a really broad subject. You can class conversational AI as part of NLP. You could class speech to text as NLP, text analytics as NLP. So each of those subsections also has a number of specialist vendors. So even a section like NLP, there is no silver bullet one tool that does everything in that space. So you might have 6, 10, 20 different things that you want to do in that NLP space. That could be 6 or 7 different tools. So it's not really a wonder why people start scratching their heads to think about RPA is really simple in comparison to thinking about those next steps. I spent the last nearly 4 years at ISG speaking to pretty much a different vendor every week. And by nature, I'm a problem solver. I live to solve problems. I use technology to solve problems now. I've used people, process, you name it. Like my role in life is to solve problems. So I'm so inquisitive. Customers, clients give me problems. I'm going to find a solution for them.
Yeah.
And if I've been a client has told me 6 months ago they've got this problem, and I end up speaking to a technology vendor in another 6 months' time, I'm still linking that. All right, I know exactly the person whose problem you solve. A lot of people don't necessarily have the time or the will to be able to spend that much time investigating technology purely for our clients' benefit.
Yeah.
And so it's not really a surprise that people really are struggling to move from basic RPA into this world of intelligent automation. But really to understand what is the right next step, it really is to try and hone into one and go incrementally. So don't bite off more than what you can chew. Don't try and go for 5, 10, 15 different capabilities at once. Pick one with the biggest next level of benefit, and that's either it has benefit that it delivers itself, or it allows our RPA to increase the amount of processing that it can do, subsequently increases the amount of benefit that you can deliver. And it really is as simple as that. From a where do you go next? Assess, understand where value can be extracted, and then build your business case, and then just go one technology at a time. The key is to do the assessment once though. And this is a mistake a lot of people make is, if you only assess a process now for RPA, I guarantee that you're going to have to do another assessment when you look at it through this intelligent automation lens. And that's certainly for me, one of the things that I have been pushing internally now for the last kind of 3 years is RPA, although it's very hot right now, is still yesterday's news as far as being cutting edge is concerned. And so if we're really going to help differentiate ourselves, then we need to be thinking about the next 3 years, not about the now. And so, enabling all of our process assessments to be completed through the lens of intelligent automation one of the things that I'm most proud about with with working at ISG, and the fact that we've been able to enable that throughout our organization. That's definitely a key differentiator, and is helping our clients, even though they may only be starting on their RPA journey. We're creating them a roadmap for the next 2 or 3 years that spans multiple technologies, and I think that is really, really important. You do need to be thinking about the what's next now, even if you're starting out.
Yeah, I suppose it's not just focusing on what you're doing right now. It's you've got a plan for the future. You know where you're going. I think, like you say, it's a journey. It's not just a sort of quick fix. But just going back to, you mentioned around so many different vendors out there for all the different types of technologies. In terms of with the different technologies and bringing them on board, is it easy to get all these technologies working together? Is that as simple as we can just plug and play? We've got RPA in the business. Now we're going to look at bringing in another technology. Is it that straightforward, or is it is it a lot more complex than that, or does it sort of depend?
So it depends. But if you look at all the major RPA vendors, and you look at things like the digital exchange and the plot store and all of these good things that the vendors have got, these online marketplaces, these online marketplace for new complementary technologies.
Yeah.
The kind of answers are already there, right? So and it's not that everything has been answered, but there's a lot of integrations that have been completed in the background, and there's a lot of it's interesting that I've seen the conversation with vendors, partners, of ISG change probably over the last kind of 6 to 12 months, whereas it's gone from this is what we do to this is the role we can play in an ecosystem, and these are the people who we're talking to about how we can work together really well.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that a lot, and I think there's a definite realization that there is no panacea in the world of automation. There is no one solution that does everything. There's no one solution that's ever going to do everything brilliantly, as much as they may believe that they can do.
Yeah.
And so playing nicely in an ecosystem is absolutely the future. In an ideal world, it would be so much simpler if one tool did everything. But again, jack of all trades, master of none. And in a world where you're asking a technology to do some pretty complex stuff as far as technology is, then we at the moment, at least, we're definitely going to have to get these tools working together.
Yeah.
If you think about something like OCR as a really easy stepping stone, you've got some great tools that work well together. You've got WorkFusion as an example, a little bit weaker on the RPA side, but ML and OCR, okay. AmpWorks, another good example there. Automation Anywhere and its IQ bot. So you've got RPA and OCR working really well together in single tools. But I've got a lot of clients where they're using Abby as an example, market leading OCR tool with RPA seamlessly. Abby basically does what it does and creates a structured output for RPA to pick up. So what is the integration? It's really an integration. I mean, RPA is just going to a location where Abby has dumped something and picking it up.
Yeah.
And that's one of the beauties of RPA, is that if any tool can dump an output, a decision, anything into a place where it's structured, RPA can just pick it up and do something with it. And so that for me is one of the absolute beauties of RPA versus maybe some other technologies that are out there.
Yeah.
And you can get pretty clever with RPA as well. I mean, you could turn some of the processes that you are building actually into web services. So it acts like an API, although it's far from it's an API that's built by a business user. So there are definitely ways and means. You've got SDKs, you've got VBOs, you've got different methods of these technologies talking to each other as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tools now, and they make it so easy to integrate. And it's not always easy and perfect. And it's, between one tool and another. But if their tool makes it incredibly difficult to work with any other tools, I'm gonna say now that tool is going to have a short shelf life.
Yeah.
It's all about the ecosystem, and intelligent automation is all about tools being friendly with each other. So it's not every answer is out there at the moment, but the way that the market's going, the conversations I'm having, the way that the vendors are all talking, it's all about partnerships. It's all about working hand in glove with each other and making it really simple for end clients to get these tools. And the reason being is they understand that in order to be successful themselves, as a standalone and for the client, they have to do this.
Has to work. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Okay. Good. Yeah, because it's always interesting to, but like you say, the jack of all trades side of things, because you hear a lot of stories around some of the vendors claiming to do so much, and it's just curious because you've got all these other different technologies out there, and like you say, using a specialist just makes sense. You want to get that specific thing done right, and you'd obviously go to a specialist for that. You don't want to just sort of generalize your program, and you kind of want to make it work, but it's a bit confusing sometimes, I think, for a lot of people that we speak to. How will they get those things to work? Is it that easy? So it's interesting to hear that that ecosystem does exist, and these vendors are actually making their products easy to to connect to other products as well. I think that leads us on nicely to another point as well that's been raised around getting the the strategy right, because I think everyone knows that that's the technology is great, and the technology can do so many things, but if your strategy is not right, then it's just never going to work. Do you have an idea about what the best strategy is, and what you actually need to accomplish this? Do you have to have like a specialist team already in your organization? Do you have to bring people in? How does that sort of look? How does that work?
Strategy is important. I think without having a good strategy, your automation program is likely to fail. It is, I would say, 20% technology and 80% how you enable the business to get the most value out of it. Because these technologies are not particularly hard. They're not, but you can literally become accredited to develop processes within a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
And I do liken the technology a little bit to like learning to drive. Like you can go on a crash course and learn to drive in a week, but you know what? When you go in that car for your first time on a motorway, I'm like, it's a whole nother world, right? You're just like, I am not comfortable in being able to do this. You're doing 30 miles an hour on the inside lane being beeped at. In a business sense, you just caused a massive cock up, and you've got fraud and security wondering why the hell there's all these fraudulent transactions that suddenly have been able to go through the net because you've made a mess up on the process. Like that is, that's the whole bot building, picking up these tools. It is pretty simple. The technology side of this, as in making use of the technology, is such a small part in reality compared to the role of the function, where the function sits. This is an age-old debate about IT versus the business. Do you know what? There are three things I'd say that you absolutely need to consider and get right in order to be successful as part of your strategy. In an ideal world, you need to have top-down agreement and alignment that automation is going to play an important role in your future business strategy. You need that for a few reasons, but the successful organizations, the ones that have been really successful now, have enabled the business to treat automation as a priority.
They have amended KPIs around, big director, exec board KPIs around this being important.
Yeah.
So top down direction and support, and not necessarily mandated, because nobody wants to mandate, but making sure that automation is a board level priority.
Yeah.
Bringing your people on the journey. So it's great to go top down, but actually you also need to go bottom up. And the thing around the people is that the most successful programs do not concentrate solely on FTE reduction. They concentrate on a well-rounded benefit profile. They look at multiple reasons to automate, and it's not just about cost saving. And I think it's only when you really get into automation being a value lever, a business value lever, rather than a stick to save money, that you really get this kind of the right culture within your organization. And that culture is just so important, because the really successful automation programs that that I've run and that I've been part of and that I've helped enable have had one another thing in common. It's this push-pull mentality. So when you first start out, generally you're going out to the business to find opportunity, and you're bringing that back into your center of excellence. And you know what? You can do that for a point in time, and eventually you're probably going to run out of things to automate. And we see this. We've heard of the RPA wall, the RPA ceiling. It's because it's quite one-dimensional. I have hammer, me find nail. Into the business, and you know what, that goes so far and you're going to find opportunities fantastic. But where those that are really successful is where actually you're not just going out to the business, but you've got the business coming to you.
Yeah.
Not only have you got the business coming to you with RPA opportunities, but actually you've got RPA and intelligent automation strategically embedded in your processes, all the way from when you start. So new product, new service, we've got a new idea, we're thinking about doing X. So all the way at the start of your research and development, you're using automation as a potential lever to help solve the problems that you've got. And that might be, how do we service this new product? It might be, how do I create this new product in my billing system? How do I go to market with this new product? And so not only is automation being used with output, i.e. what things you already have in your business, but actually it's a key driver in how new things are initially built and serviced in your business. And it's those things in conjunction that lead to really valuable automation programs, ones that are sustainable. And this sustainability, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
The number of organizations that stall, they call this the program stalls. And I think the reason is that most people initially will class automation getting going as a project, and then the project ends and the CAB sessions finish and the monthly steering meetings all finish, and then you kind of sit down and your implementation partner leaves, and you're just like,
what do we do now?
Yeah. Well, what do we do now? And I think there's this difference, and this is what your strategy needs to enable. It needs to be less about delivering a project and more about nurturing a capability. And if you create a capability within your organization, one that knows how to push, to pull, that's in the right processes, that has the right people with the right knowledge, that is culturally fit for the business as well, and that is respected, then the world is generally your oyster. It's when it's a thing in a department that no one appreciates that you get this kind of us them mentality, this it's us against the world. And you know what? It's going to shrivel up and die, and we do see that. And I have seen some interesting stats. I read one the other day, which I have seen before, but it kind of came to the fore again. I think there's an EY stat saying that between 30 and 50% of RPA programs fail. I'd be really interested in what that definition of failure actually means.
Yeah.
And is that a misinterpretation of what success should look like? Because do you know what? It's very difficult for this technology to fail. Why? Because it's not actually the most expensive technology to buy. It's not necessarily the most expensive technology or complex technology to implement. And it's replicating things that happen in just about every business. Like, how can that fail? So I think failure has to be taken with a pinch of salt. Now, if the expectation of this technology was that it was going to deliver you millions of benefit in days, not weeks or years, then do you know what? Of course, it's going to be seen in the eyes of those that are paying the bill as a failure.
Yeah.
That is bad expectation setting, and that's what your strategy has really got to be about as well. It's about setting the right expectations with the right people, because until you really understand the role of this, and again, it's not a panacea, and you need to ignore a lot of the marketing that surrounds automation in general. But if there's a dose of realism in this, it's very, very difficult for it to actually fail. And I don't think I've actually seen a real example of where it has not added the value that at least I would expect it to be added. So strategy is so important.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can stress that enough. And as I say, those three levers that you really need to be thinking about: top down, bring everybody on board, and also be thinking about the role or push pull and how automation fits right at the start of your R&D process.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I just wanted to go back to one point that you mentioned around having the business, come to you and bring opportunities to you for automation. How does a business go about sort of incentivizing that? Because sometimes there is obviously a bit of resistance when these sort of technologies are brought into these organizations. People are scared that robots are going to take their jobs, or they don't necessarily know that that RPA or intelligent automation is being done in the organization. So how does a business go about having that come to them? Is it what do they have to do to kind of make that happen?
Yeah. I think it all comes down to good communications in this instance. And again, there's probably not a right answer for every business. Every business is going to be different. I mean, some of the examples I've seen, prizes for the best ideas. Actually, people getting rewarded by that automation being built. It doesn't even have to be a monetary prize. The fact that it was their idea that was automated, and maybe they got to name the robot. Often the types of roles and jobs and tasks that have been automated, they're not necessarily being completed by execs. So the fact that you are being recognized across an organization as having that idea that the automation team took upon, out of tens, hundreds, thousands maybe, is a real accolade for a lot of people. So I think that's certainly one way of being able to get the business on board. I think the other one, and one of my clients, Alta Domus, Danilo's who leads that program, done a really good job of making it easy for people to submit their ideas, so that they can, it's not a challenge. Really simple. Here's a portal. There's some training around this. You've made it really accessible. And if I compare that to one of my other clients in the Nordics, to submit an idea, you had to go to ServiceNow. It was really hidden. So unless you knew it was there, I am telling you now, as I saw it for the first time, I asked the question, I was like, how, if you didn't know that was there, how would you find it? Oh, you probably wouldn't. Okay, well that's and this was the light bulb moment. It's probably not a surprise that you've only had one idea submitted in 6 months. Ta-da!
Yeah.
So make it easy. So make it fun, make it easy, and obviously from a cultural perspective, make sure that this is seen as a friend, not a foe.
Yeah.
That's more change management. But once you've kind of got that comms right, that this isn't, this is trying to take the boring stuff away from you. And again, I've heard this a lot, but yeah, in reality, it's quite true. A lot of the tasks that this is removing are the pretty mundane, boring stuff. And you know what? If you come in on a Monday morning, you're massively hungover from the weekend, it's probably the exact things that you want to be doing because you don't have to think.
Yeah.
When you get to a Wednesday afternoon, you're halfway through the week and you're just doing these mundane things, the last thing you really want to be doing is that.
Yeah.
It's not making your day go very quickly, and it's not making your weekend come any earlier. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably the key, the communications around this is removing the stuff you don't want to do in the first place.
Great. Yeah, no, I think that's, yeah, we've seen and heard stories about that as well, and it's I suppose trying to get over that initial hurdle, and then once once the communication is clear, it's then all of a sudden just accepted, by everyone. So it's good to see. I think one of the last things that would be good to touch on that we hear quite a lot. Obviously, we work with quite a lot of organisations who are looking to get started, trying to hire the skills to help them get started sometimes and build up these teams. It's what doing these intelligent automation and RPA programs, what can hold you back, and what pitfalls do you need to avoid? Is there anything that for someone who might be starting out or might be looking for that next step after RPA into intelligent automation, what things do they need to kind of look out for and kind of avoid?
I think we've none of this is new, right? So there's so much knowledge out there, whether it be online content, whether it be expertise, webinars, you name it. There's a lot of information out there now. Certainly none of this was available when I first kicked off. And you know what? I think I could have done 2, 3, 4 times a better job, even though I was really successful, just because there's so many of the questions I had now the answers are just readily known and available. But I don't think, as much as the technology can be quite simple, this is still pretty difficult, right?
Yeah.
Up to 70% of change programs fail. Guess what? Automation is a change program. And so you still need a level of expertise. And so, don't struggle alone. And there's 2 ways to do that, right? Bring it in from a headcount perspective. One of the things I'd say about you guys, Harrison, is you've got a great network. A lot of people who are in and around this space. You know a lot of expertise. Okay, so that's one way. Bring the expertise in permanently.
Yeah.
And then the other one, obviously, is using people like me, ISG, and God knows how many other experts in assisting you upon this journey. I mean, all of that is really important. I mean, that's one way.
Yeah.
None of the stuff that you are going to be doing is going to be done for the first time. It's all going to have been done numerous times. So don't struggle alone. Like, literally use somebody who has done it. And you know what? It might cost something, but if it makes your journey go 2, 3, 4 times quicker, do you know what? That's money well spent. So I think that's probably one way. With regards to pitfalls, I think the biggest pitfall, even now, is this relationship between the business and IT. And it doesn't matter who is leading, whether it be the business, whether it be IT. There are challenges with both. Okay, there are challenges with both. If it's an IT-led program, I often see the business disengaged. Okay, when it's a business-led program, I often see IT holding their hands up to say, like, what is this? What are you doing? What, this, why do you think that this is appropriate? And putting up barriers. You've got to get that right. You've got to get the relationship between IT and the business working hand in glove in order for this to be successful. And also, as much as a lot of these technologies are should be very simple to implement. I've got an ongoing client at the moment, and I'm not kidding. It's taken them 6 months in order to get their internal setup to a position where we are able to make use of the RPA technology, because
internally, they don't, they've really struggled to get this set up. So that is often another hurdle that is pretty difficult for organizations to overcome. And then the last one probably, and again it comes back to the communications point, is culture, right?
Yeah.
If you get people's backs up early, the people whose backs you're getting up are probably the people who have the knowledge that you need to extract in order to be successful. Well, guess what? They don't want to give you the right knowledge. They ain't giving you that right knowledge. It's very easy for people to forget, to not be helpful. And that, to be honest, is one of the things you can't necessarily legislate for. And it's going to make your journey 2, 3, 4, 5 times harder if you don't have people on board. So that would certainly be be a couple of the things that I think you really need to look out for. And again, that's not new news for most people, but I don't think I can stress enough that these really are real life challenges that organizations still have now, and they're the things that people really need to be thinking about.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think we have a lot of people ask those questions regularly, with the businesses that we work with, and for us, working in the industry that we work in, it's not new, but for some organisations, it's their first time doing this, so they're kind of entering into that unknown, or if they've done RPA, they're looking at what's next. So I think it's it's good for them to know. So I think leaving it with that, obviously it's been great speaking to you. Thanks for taking the time out of your evening to once the kids are in bed to to speak to me and share your knowledge on this topic. I think a lot of people find it really interesting. To anyone who's if you find any of these topics interesting, or you want to find out some more information, we'll have our contact details at the end of this video, so feel free to reach out, whether it be to Wayne or myself, and we'd be happy to answer any questions or elaborate on any of the topics and answer any questions you might have. So thanks for tuning in, and Wayne, thanks for joining me.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, and catch you soon. Cheers, Harrison.
Cheers.